Y'all know I love me some Natasha Denona, and Natasha Denona dropped another mini palette. We have the Natasha Denona Mini Rose, of course. I had to get my hands on it. This is a new mini palette that is not based off of a midi. However, y'all, there are some repeating shades in one of my favorite palettes, the Retro. So we are going to swatch them next to each other today. I am going to play with this palette. I am going to create a look. I'm gonna let you know my thoughts and if it's worth it, if you should purchase this. Let's dive in. Okay, so a little bit about this palette. This is not based on a midi palette. Is a midi rose going to be coming? I don't know. We do have some repeating shades though. So this shade right here in Opart is repeating. This shade in Psychedelic is repeating. This shade in Andy is repeating. So we only have two new shades. This one in the middle, Flamingo and Golden Rose. Now I love the Retro palette. These three shades are in the Retro palette. We're gonna swatch them next to each other so that you can see what it's looking like. But I wanna go ahead, I wanna use this. I love Natasha Denona. I'm interested to know if these mini shadows are the same quality as the Retro, if they swatch the same or whatnot. We're gonna create a look. These are $27. So if you love Natasha Denona, but like you're not trying to drop 70 bucks on an eyeshadow palette, I feel like the minis are a great way to go. I don't always feel like the mini eyeshadows perform quite on par the way that her midis do, but I still think that they're great, and for 27 bucks you can find these at Sephora or through the Natasha Denona site. I do have a code with Natasha Denona. It's KBella, but it's a one-time use code to save 15%. So if you've used it, I mean, you can order through Sephora, you can use another influencer codes, a ton of us have them, but let's go ahead and do some swatches. So these three swatches right here are the three shades from this mini palette, and then I'll swatch them with the Retro. But we have Psychedelic, followed by Andy, followed by Opart. This is, again, the mini. Now I'm gonna swatch them with the Retro. Okay, so next to those shades, I do have the shades from the Retro palette, and I will say, I mean, just touching them, swatching them, looking up close, and of course I'll include, you know, an insert where I zoom in close so that you can see. I have to say that the Psychedelic shade, I feel like my Retro Psychedelic gave me a little bit more oomph, but really when I'm looking at it up close, you can't quite tell. You can't quite tell the difference, but I just felt like I had a little bit more pigmentation. I didn't have to go in extra with the Psychedelic in my Retro palette. Keep in mind, this also is not a new palette. With Andy, I felt like Andy in the mini was more pigmented than the Andy in the Retro, but not really anything that was super noticeable. It just, that could come down to just the formula of my Mini Rose being new and the Retro being one that I've had for a couple of years at this point. Where I saw a difference was down at the bottom in the Opart shade. So this is the Opart from my Retro palette. This is the Opart from the Mini Rose. I do believe that the Opart in the Retro was cream to formula, I think. I could be wrong on that. It doesn't say anything on the back here for me, but this one is a little bit lighter. It's not quite as pigmented. I went in a couple times in the Retro palette to get this shade right here, whereas Opart, like one swatch in the Mini Rose, it was very pigmented. It was soft, but it didn't have like a creamy feel the way that Opart in the Retro palette did. So I feel like, I mean, is it different enough to where you need both palettes? Absolutely not. If you already have the Retro, I don't really necessarily feel like you need to spend the 27 bucks for this just to get two new shades. I mean, this shade is very pretty down here in what's it called, Golden Rose. I mean, it is really pretty. We're gonna use it today. We're gonna play with it today, but I don't necessarily know that if you have the Retro, the swatches, it's not really that different. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna zoom you in. We're gonna play. You guys may see my Sonic drink in the background. I'm sorry, but I love cherry limeades. So I'm just going to quickly prime with my Ulta eye primer, and I do plan to use all of the shades today. I find it easier in a mini palette like this with 5 shades to use them all. So that's the plan. We're gonna create a look. So I'm gonna do what I normally do. I'm gonna take my fluffy brush and dip into this middle shade here in Flamingo. It is a creamy kind of bone colored shade, and I'm going to press it into the crease and then put it up here on the brow bone, but I'm not really worried about taking that onto the lid. The reason for doing this is because I have small hooded eyes and I have creasing issues in my crease. So That's why I always like to set. I also really just like a matte bone shade up here on my highlight underneath the brow bone. I used to do a little bit of sparkle every now and then. We'll put a little shimmer under there, but I'm bad at keeping my eyebrows clean, so I don't do that very much. So then I'm taking my BK202. We're gonna go into Andy, which is just this beautiful mauve shade. This is one of the shades that I use the most in my retro palette. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. And I love my retro palette. I go back and forth between retro being my favorite and my dream. Retro is not even one that I initially was going to get, and I just fell in love with it. So not going to be very precise, just going to build up this Andy shade in the crease. You know what I think would be cute that I'm not going to do today is take that Opart shade and use it as like a liner. Today I'm going to use it to deepen up the outer V, but I feel like if you used it with like a little liner pencil and gave yourself like a little wing, that's not something that I typically do, which is why I'm not doing it today. I'm just going to use this how I would normally use it, but I think that would be super duper cute. Taking my BK207, going into that Opart shade, and this one was very pigmented. It was more pigmented than the retro, so that's why I'm just like lightly stamping, because I just want to get this right here in the outer V to give myself a little bit of depth and dimension. I do have very small hooded eyes, so I like to kind of bring a little definition here. You will see me just kind of, this is a little powdery. I don't normally find Natasha Denona shadows to be quite this powdery, but I am kind of just blowing the dust away as I'm working with the palette. I love this brush for lid work. It's the Singe EO1, and I'm gonna go into the shade that is new, this one right here. It is in, what's it called again? Golden Rose. I'm gonna put that on my brush and spray it with Fix Plus and put that all over the lid. So just gonna go ahead and press this. It is a beautiful shade. I'm putting it all over the lid, but I'm kind of leaving like a very, very tiny piece on the inner corner because I think we'll put Psychedelic there. Then I'm just gonna flip it over and I'm going to use the other side going into that Psychedelic shade. And I'm gonna, again, spray it with Fix Plus and put that more on the inner corner of my eye, but also like this inner section of my eye as well. So like right here. And then at the end, I'm gonna put it in my inner corner too. Psychedelic is a beautiful, like very, very light, almost like toppery type of shade. So we're just gonna get that in the inner corner. To do a little lower lash line work, we're gonna dip into Andy with my very dirty Sigma pencil brush and run that along the lower lash line. After I do that, I'll take a little bit of Opart and just put it on the outer part of my lower lash line. If you've ever seen me do this before, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but I just want to cover up them little wrinkles under there. So then for the inner corner, taking that Psychedelic, popping that right here. Okay, so here is the look right here using the new Mini Rose palette. Let's go ahead and zoom out and I'm gonna share my thoughts with you. Okay, so first of all, I think this palette, this color story, I mean, it speaks to me. Obviously, because I purchased it immediately once I saw it. I was like, ooh, yes, the roses, the pinks, the neutrals. It's my vibe. This is not like, this isn't a glam eye look, y'all. Like, this is kind of like an everyday go-to, like a soft romantic vibe for me. If you are maybe a beginner or you just want to dip your toe into Natasha Denona, or you just love this color story, I mean, I think it's a great one. $27, it's a great way to try Natasha Denona. It's a great way to try these eyeshadows. But I do want to say, if you already have the retro palette, I don't really see a need for you to have both of these. Like, I don't feel like you need to have the retro palette and the Mini Rose because you do have those repeating shades. So even though, I mean, they are slightly different, it's not exact, you know, dupes with the shades, especially with Opart, I don't feel like you need both. So I would say just go ahead and skip the Mini Rose, or if you know, maybe you like a smaller palette, then that would be more for you than the retro. But if you like more options, the retro would be more affordable for you. It's the same Natasha Denona quality that I love. It's, you know, like this color story just speaks to me. I love a mini. I'm into it. I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of it, especially since it's like back to school, you know? Back to school. I'm a teacher. I'm going back to work. I mean, I think I'm really going to enjoy it, but I don't think I had to have it. I did when I saw it, but in the end, I don't think I have to have it. So that's gonna do it for this video. I hope it was helpful. I hope it helped you make your decision on whether or not this one was for you. I would love to know your thoughts down below. Did you pick it up? Are you going to pick it up? Are you passing on it? What is your favorite Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette? Because I ranked all mine. I talked about all mine. So I wanna know your favorite in the comments down below. But that's gonna do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.